Well, obviously Romney is trying to use this Latino leadership team as a way of trying to send a signal to Latino voters that, yes, I am interested in your votes, I care about you, trying, I think, to overcome the rather negative perception that I think most Latino voters have right now of the Republican Party and of Mitt Romney. Right, during the primary campaign, what we saw was that all of the candidates, and including Mitt Romney, were basically trying to appeal to Republican primary voters who are very conservative and who are overwhelmingly white. And on immigration issues in particular, they were all taking a fairly hard line. We saw, for example, Mitt Romney came out against the DREAM Act. We saw various candidates talking about the need to crack down on illegal immigrants and so on. And I think as a result of that, and also the policies that a lot of Republican governors and state legislatures have been enacting in recent years, that right now the Republican Party clearly has an image problem with Latino voters, and that is a problem for Mitt Romney because there are a lot of Latino voters in some of the swing states. And if he loses the Latino vote, by too big a margin, that's going to make it very difficult for him to carry those states. Okay. Well, I think they're going to concentrate their outreach, including advertising, aimed at Latino voters in the swing states and in the states that have a large Latino electorate. So I'm sure you'll see ads in Spanish that'll be running in states like Florida, in Colorado, in Nevada, in New Mexico, states where there's a large Latino electorate. You may not see it in Georgia, where the Latino electorate is much smaller, and also where, right now at least Georgia is not considered a swing state in this election. As far as Georgia is concerned, I think right now neither campaign is looking at Georgia as one of the states that they're going to be targeting for political advertising and for a lot of get out the vote, registration efforts and so on. They're going to be focusing on the 12 or 14 states that are considered swing states in the election right now. Well, I think the Obama campaign's message has to be that Obama is concerned about the problems of Latino voters, that he has worked to try to improve the condition of the economy. That's the main issue for all types of voters, and that in particular he favors reforms of immigration and the DREAM Act and issues that are of particular concern to Latino voters. So I think for Republicans, I think that the problem is trying to convince Latino voters that A, the Republican Party would do a better job on the economy than Obama has done, because again the economy is the big issue in the election, but also that they are at least concerned about the issues of immigration and willing to look at ways of trying to help Latinos who are in this country right now, even if they may have originally come here without documentation. So that's going to be a tough sell, I think, given the track record of the Republican Party, especially in many of the states. Yeah, that's right. If you look at Georgia, what you see is that Latinos now make up about 10% of the population of Georgia, but only about 3% of the voters in Georgia. So there's a gap between the population and the electorate. That's due to both age, citizenship, and immigration status. So Latinos are not yet a major voting bloc in the state of Georgia, but they are growing in size, as they are in almost everywhere. Latinos are already a large and very important voting bloc in Florida, in Texas, in Colorado, in Arizona, and in Mexico, and many other states. So in those states, especially the swing states like Colorado and Nevada and Florida, I think you're going to see a big effort made by the campaigns to try to reach out to Latino voters. For Republicans, I think Florida is, of course, a key state, and one where, because the Latino electorate is a little bit different there, in that you have both the large Cuban American voting bloc, but also a growing number of Latino voters from Mexico and Central America and South America. You have a much more diverse Latino electorate in Florida now than you did 20 years ago. and it's shifting more toward the Democrats, and that's one of the factors that gives the Democrats a chance to carry Florida again. But it will depend on turnout and just how the Latino vote breaks down in November. Well, what you see when you look at the press release that they put out here is that, first of all, you see Latino names. You see several Republican elected officials who are Latinos, who are very prominent. But of course, there are not a lot of Latino elected officials when you look at the big picture. And I think they try to basically skirt around the immigration issue to suggest that they're sympathetic and concerned about the problems of Latino citizens and non-citizens in the United States, but without getting too specific, because if they get too specific, then I think they risk alienating some of their own base. And that's the problem the Republican Party has right now, in that they're sort of trapped by this very conservative, overwhelmingly white base that is very hostile to any kind of immigration reform, and a growing Latino electorate that is a real problem for the Republican Party, especially looking ahead to the future. So, looking ahead 4 years, 8 years, 12 years from now, I think the Latino electorate is definitely going to be growing. Instead of 8 or 9% of the vote, and maybe 12 or 14% of the national vote.
His first response is always to find someone to blame.
That's something that I think a lot of Republican strategists are very concerned about right now. During the primaries, of course, Romney was adopting a rather hard line on the issue of immigration, for example. Since he's sort of locked up the Republican nomination, we've seen a bit of a shift. His rhetoric on immigration has changed. It's become more moderate. He has talked about the possibility of embracing a proposal put forth by Senator Rubio, for example, that calls for a sort of a Republican version of the DREAM Act. This is a change for Romney. It's definitely a shift toward a more moderate position on immigration. And I think we'll see more of that as the campaign goes on and we get closer to Election Day. The question is whether Latino voters are going to be persuaded that this is a genuine shift, and which Mitt Romney are you getting as president. If he becomes president, will he be the moderate Mitt Romney that he was when he was governor of Massachusetts, or that he seems to be doing the positions he seems to be taking now? Or will he be the more conservative, hardline Mitt Romney that we saw during the Republican primaries?
So if he chooses a Latino, like a vice president, like Mr. Rubio,
right.
Do you think it would be a strong message?
Well, someone like Rubio, I think, would be an interesting pick. But from the polling I've seen, I don't think that by itself is going to have a big influence on Latino voters. The vice presidential candidate usually doesn't, make that much difference. And even though Rubio is Latino, he's a Cuban American, of course, and Cuban American voters tend to be, much more Republican anyway. I don't know that picking Rubio is going to have a big impact on, let's say, Latino voters, from other countries of origin. It may not have that much impact on Mexican Americans or Puerto Rican Americans and so on. So my hunch is that that would not make a big difference.
Anything else with his campaign?
No, I mean that's about all I can think of right now.
That you notice something interesting now?
No, I mean, I think this is going to be a very interesting campaign, because it looks like we're heading toward a very close election. It's going to go down to the wire. And, the Latino vote is going to be one of the factors that will decide the outcome.